when seeing the years of video games, you've seen fads that have come and gone, and but one that seems to always stick around no matter what has always been the kart racer. The kart racing genre always seems to stick around for who knows how long. The one that really sticks out the most for anybody, obviously, is the Mario franchise. But that isn't to say that other people have tried to make their own version of a kart racer using either their own characters or characters that they can license. And the one that would be a no-brainer would be Mario's rival, Sonic the Hedgehog, which he's dabbled in with his own versions of Sonic racers, from Sonic R to Sonic Riders to others like it, but they don't seem to stick the landing very good. They are uniquely their own thing, but they just don't stick out as much or are well executed as the Mario games were. But this time we can see it's different. We've seen actually a few Sonic racing games that have really stood out, especially a recent Sonic team racing game. And this one is no different. This one actually is the one I think sticks out the most, is Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed. And from its starting lineup, we can see that a lot of it's going to be Sonic characters, but also Sega characters from every era, mostly every era, from its Dreamcast to the Master System to the Saturn to arcades, you name it. Most of these characters on here, even characters that you wouldn't think would be in here, like Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph and Danica Patrick. The fact that they brought these characters in there is quite welcome, though really unexpected. The one aspect that you've seen from its opening video was the transformation gimmick, and yes, it really does feel like it is a gimmick, but it's a welcome gimmick. It feels very welcome into racers, that your character's car transforms from a car to a boat to a plane, and these definitely have different attributes to them that you could feel the moment that the car will change, and the tracks will always show off that aspect for your character's car. One thing I do find is very welcome and very enjoyable to me was that every car feels different. It looks different. The car is so compact, because it's so transformable, and they have their own unique things that are unique in how they transform. Some of them looking mechanical, some of them even using something of a magical transformation. The fact that the racing aspect is built not just on speed but also skill. The fact that you need to learn how to drift and learn how to flip when you're in the air to do tricks to speed up, because those things, they take time to learn. But it's also once you've mastered them, it feels more second nature to try to learn them. One thing I'd always appreciate is some items can be, but mostly it is the boosts can be stacked up to levels, which I always love to see more in more kart racer games, to see items be stacked to different levels to have different modes of effectiveness. But the items here are they're probably the most generic part about Sonic All-Stars Racing Transform, because it's like random rockets and blowfish and little mini remote control drones and baseball glove that catches items, little things like that. And they don't really feel like they belong in with the Sonic universe. I would love to see more unique items that would be from the Sega canon to be used in the game, but I could see it fits in with the colorful cartoony vibe that it wants to give off. And that's more or less I can always appreciate. Another aspect that I did want to say is, like, the tracks themselves are just big homages to Sega itself. Is that they're, if certain characters are not represented as a playable character, they're represented in the track. And a lot of them are just references to games like House of the Dead, Golden Axe, Burning Rangers. Burning Rangers, that was an interesting one way back when, but I love the fact that they brought that as a playable course. So it's basically this big homage and love letter to Sega in everything that it's doing, from its characters to its to its tracks, to mostly anything that you see. But I think, but for the one problem I did have with it is that not every character really gets the full representation. At least to me, it doesn't, and that's kind of bothersome. Like you see some characters maybe in the background, but they don't really get like a full. They don't get their own character. They don't get like shown off much. The one that I think that they did in an interesting way was to have a character called Ages, which represents Daytona USA, Afterburner, and Sega Dreamcast by transforming into those things for its transformations. Even having little pickups like doing the Sega Genesis Sega, or hearing this Sega Dreamcast or Sega Saturn startup sounds. So it definitely shows that they, for what they lacked in some parts, they made up for it in a bunch of others, to where you could see where that's where they excelled at. I think the one thing that actually makes it way more fun is to see that the driver of Ages is the Sega Dreamcast memory card of all things. To me, that is hilarious and nice to see that they gave it a character, because it definitely feels like it should be its own character. Like the one thing that I can say, like, it's not all. I can tell you that it's not all great. Sometimes the controls do feel a little too slippery, but that's more when it comes to the fact of when choosing a character, you can actually choose what mode or mod, as it's called, and what do you want to do. Do you want them to be more in acceleration, more in handling, more in speed boosts, more in specials? And those aren't things that you get right out of the gate. You have to unlock those, and it's not like, well, does every character feel the same? No, every character definitely feels very unique to each other, unique to each of how their playstyles are. It's just that when you change them, they have more. They'll be more tuned to that method, but still feel uniquely that is uniquely them. And I think one thing is that, like, for most part, I really did appreciate a lot of things from it, but I just did not like the AI, because when you start off on easier modes, yeah, they're pushovers, they're pretty easy to take down, but the moment you get to the harder difficulties, they become vicious and relentless. They are very, very aggressive. And for some people, they do like that, but sometimes they get, I want to call, like, it just feels like it's hacks. Like, it just feels like they do crazy stuff that you've never been able to do, and you don't know how to keep up sometimes, and they know all the secrets, and yet you don't. Which is par for the course. Sometimes they make them that way, so it does work that way. But it's not all bad, actually, because it does feel more of a challenge, but it also feels more frustrating, because there's just some things where you know you've won, but they pull something out of nowhere, and then here you are struggling to get it right. And you're struggling for the rest of the way, but it never feels like you can't come back from that. But my overall experience is that I truly did enjoy this game. I really did. A lot of the nitpicks are they're very minor. To be honest, these were very minor nitpicks for me personally, and it just didn't take away from the overall experience. That's why I want to give it a 4 out of 5. It's definitely a worthwhile game playing. I enjoy myself. A Sega fan would enjoy it. A kart racer fan would enjoy it. I want to thank you, everybody, for watching, and good night.